Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is going to be a very unique episode today because Brian is one of the few people that gets my ADHD to go from 0 to 100 in like 4 seconds flat. So we will do our best to focus on the script and what we planned to discuss in this episode. But I'm just going to let you know right now, he is one of those people that will take us down 1,500 rabbit trails probably within the next 30 minutes. I hope that you enjoy them. But okay, before we dive into that, let me just tell you a little bit about Brian. Usually, you guys don't know who I hang out with, who my friends are, who influences my worldview and things like that. And today, we are having one of those people on the show. So several years ago, I left California, came to Florida, hated it, absolutely hated it. Growth hackers were normal in California. I was loved. Work was easy. Came to Florida, people were like, "What's a growth hacker? You don't belong here." So I had this existential crisis and I was going to quit being a growth hacker and I was going to try to go into a different field. And then I get a call from my suddenly randomly adopted Jewish older brother who's like, "No, you're not going to quit growth hacking. You're going to do this, 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 this." He gave me like a 45-minute pep talk breakdown. He's one of the most accomplished growth hackers like in the world. And he took time out of his day to give me a 45-minute like breakdown of what my career should look like over the next so many years. Now I'm one of the top. I've broken multiple marketing records around the world. I've been hired to write a marketing book. I have the marketing software. And this is the guy that you can thank for all of that existing, because without his pep talk, none of that would be here today. But he didn't just save my career and inspire me to create all those things. He's also, so growth hacking there's something called a 0-day growth exploit. And this is like the creme de la creme. You do this on social media platforms. Us marketing tech nerds like really get into this. It's a lot of fun. But it also is the type of thing that gets the legal department at multi-billion-dollar tech companies. This is what keeps them up at night, is people like Brian who find these amazing growth hacks where he will figure out a way to like hijack the ads system on Facebook, for example, and be able to troll people using a loophole in their computer programming. So he's just like next level growth hacker. For those of you who are not in the like growth hacking space, that might have all sounded like French. Basically, he is a genius when it comes to finding ways to get you amazing organic reach in unconventional ways. He recently built software that can increase your return on ad spend by 3 to 4x. But before that, he built an AI system that programmatically optimized the ad copy for 150 Fortune 1000 companies. And it did rewrites for 4 Super Bowl campaigns in a week. So when you think I'm smart, this guy's like 15 times past me. He's like next level, absolutely insane. I have a few people like this that you guys are like, no one could be that smart. I'm like, actually, here they are. This is one of them. So now you have a new company. What is it?
Yes. Technically same company, new entity, but Mythos AI. Previously we were a growth agency, and then we got into building software to help with growth.
Okay, and you have like a fully stacked team. Like your team is epic. Who's on it? Can you just I know who's on it, but you have to tell everyone else who's on it, because this is just investors tune into this, and I think this is something they will be drooling over. Like,
yeah, it's been a really fun journey. Batching for time, but one of my advisors who I met through a good friend. So a good friend of mine who I met when I promoted my dating profile on Reddit. I got a call from their internal agency, and they said, "Hey, as of today, you're no longer allowed to do that, but also hi." And so he became a friend. About a year and a half later, he officiated my wedding. Through him, I met someone who became one of our advisors, Noam Kadori. He built Reddit's BizDev team, went on to manage M&A for them, then left Reddit, went to Quora, did the same thing for them. And he had been an advisor of mine for about a year when he just kind of decided that he's like, you know what, I keep getting these job offers I don't want to take. how would you feel if I came on as co-founder? And I like very quietly was like, yeah, that'd be super great. Trying to play it cool. He came on. We built an MVP. We had another advisor that he had brought on to our advisory board, Neil. Neil's been a senior lead engineer for Tapjoy, IFTTT, Pandora. He was the second engineer that started building Reddit's ads platform, then went to Google, then to Facebook, and then back to Google, and then came to us to be our CTO. I joke that if you become an advisor of our company, then you'll be an employee soon. But yeah, it's been kind of surreal because I've always thought myself to be a nerd hanging out in the back house of their property, just doing internet stuff, and then real adults seem to want to work with us, which has been really awesome.
That's crazy. And how old is your company now?
This legal entity is 2 years. The agency that preceded it, we've been going for probably 10.
Yeah. And what did you kind of already got into the agency a little bit. Wait, sorry. Okay, we're gonna pause and have an ADHD moment here. Can you just tell people the story of when you hacked Reddit's ad system in order to meet your wife? Because I feel like that needs to come in here so people understand like how next level your growth hacking brain is. Like, yeah.
So for me, it's like a lot of things that they happen. I do them. People are like, oh my God, you're so smart. And for me, like in the moment, because I can remember the moment, it's like just a series of logical conclusions. The moment in which this happened was 2018. I had a client at the time that had a mobile app, and I'd been doing like a lot of bug reports using what was at the time a new feature in iOS, which was the ability to screen record. And after I finished work, and it was kind of like late at night, I had smoked a joint, sitting at my kitchen table by myself, passing the time, swiping on a dating app. And I get to the screen where it's like, hey, you've expended your free likes. Now you have to pay. And now a few things collided. Also, like 2 days before, I'd hung out with a friend of mine who's I appreciate the very glorious introduction. To me, this friend is that person for me. Her name's Ali Spagnola. She's a multifaceted human being. She teaches people how to live more outrageously. I did like a recorded conversation with her, and one of the questions I asked, I was like, what do you define as art? And she's like, art is art if you say it's art. So now 2 days later, I've run out of likes on my dating app. That kind of just comes in. And the first thing that came to mind as I was like, you have to pay, was I'm not going to pay for more likes on a dating app. I'm an artist. And immediately the thought came in is like, well, let me just like scroll my profile to like create a video of it. And I was like, oh, that's a video. To make an ad, you upload a video. So that was my video creative. And literally between my kitchen table and my computer, I texted Ali to be like, is advertising my dating profile with a Reddit ad? That's art, right? And she's like, absolutely. And so I jumped over to my computer, and the ad copy I used was recently single, currently stoned, promoting my dating profile with Reddit ads made sense, comments unlocked. And what was interesting was it hacked the Reddit system in the sense that like no one had really ever done creative content just for the sake of it. There was no reasonable trackable point of conversion for that ad. It was very much not, it was using the ad system to promote content, more or less. And what I learned was actually the CPC that I got for that was stupidly low because nobody was clicking on the ad. They were watching the video and then they were commenting. And that that was 2018, fast forward to now, the software that we built is basically an extension of that. We built a system that enables you to build a multi-agent AI workflow, which essentially can be deployed in the comments beneath any ad, and it can speak on behalf of brands to people in the comments. If you're selling cars and someone says, I don't want a minivan, actually, I want a sports car, like, oh, okay, just as a salesperson would in, the car showroom, they adapt to the person that just walked in the door and what they're communicating. Has the ability to play with people who are being trollish, has the ability to, work towards an objective, whether it be conversion or otherwise. And that very much is kind of the logical conclusion between 2018 and now, of like, okay, great, we can essentially get free clicks by getting people to engage in the comments. Let's do that.
I love that you've enabled it to engage with people that are being trollish, because like, okay, as a high IQ person, do you feel like there are so few people on the planet that you'll sit down and they'll want to like engage in like a fun mental game with you, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a meme that I loved that I sent to my wife actually, and it was like me being ADHD and starting an argument for the dopamine, but not realizing that the other person is ADHD, and it was just like two people hitting a ball back and forth endlessly forever. Very much my wife and I's relationship.
Yeah. I have some people that like we'll it's not an argument, we'll like have like a fun little like diatribe, like rapidly like hitting sarcastic comments back and forth. But there are so few people that do that. So I love that you created AI to do that with us. That's awesome.
Yeah, I
Um
mean, prior to the ad in 2018 of my dating profile, I had made Brian Bot, which fundamentally was that. And Brian Bot actually was the first phone number I gave to my wife when I met her. And Brian Bot, I was hosting an event every 2 weeks, kind of like it started as a mixer, turned into like what was called a 3 hour Burning Man that happened every 2 weeks. And Brian Bot managed the entirety of that event. So if someone's like, hey, I can't find parking, Brian Bot would hold space for you and help you find parking. And so a lot of times people would come to me at that event and say like, hey, like I was texting with you earlier, and I'd be like, cool, was I helpful? And they were like, yes. And I'm like, great, not me. I mean, it is me, it's an extension of me. But a lot of the times I think that people don't realize how personable AI can be when it's given a specific focus.
yeah.
But in the context of Reddit and in the context of paid ads in general, advertising today is largely push messaging. So it's just the same message being shouted across channels. There's no point of engagement. So
Yeah.
what we kind of theorized was that we're shifting from an attention economy where you're just pushing, pushing reach into an engagement economy where you can actually build something that interfaces with the old system and actually provides a point of engagement, whether it be, being personable to increase brand lift or whether, it's be convincing in order to create conversions.
And that's just pure brilliance. That's just, I mean, my gosh, that's pure brilliance. Because how much content like, how much content do we put out there to try to make people feel like they have a relationship with us, and then to have this entire system that now converses with people so that they can feel like that relationship is even furthered.
Mhm.
That's just wild. Wow. You were explaining it to me yesterday, but wow. It's rare that someone gets me to say wow, but yeah, here we are.
The thing that got me was, so it was actually 2018 again, this ad with my dating profile, built this system. I was actually using it for email, like email automation, like programmatically sending, thousands of emails, with custom emails and then custom responses. So people would like email back and then the AI would kick in. And Noam, came on as a co-founder literally the first day that he came on. He's like, hey, I know that you've been like doing all of this around email and using the system for email. But I think that we should use it for that other thing that you've been talking about, that other use case of like, dropping bots in the comments of ads. And at the time, my thought was like, that's going to be really hard because like the legal teams at those platforms will shut us down.
Oh,
And that's like, I knew that it was a great growth hack, but it's one of those things where like there's a 0-day exploit that you use and then talk about. But you can get into trouble as a growth hacker where if you use a 0-day exploit and then you sell that 0-day exploit, the more people that you sell it to, the more likely it is to get shut down. There actually was
yeah.
someone who had an agency that they built a brand entirely off of 0-day exploits, and they got so big that they had like 100,000 growth hacker followers. And the second that they would post a 0-day exploit, the next day it was closed because they made such a big splash. So I basically was kind of holding that in my back pocket because I didn't think that it would make sense at scale. Noam disagreed, and I was like, you know what, just go talk to people that and like see what they say. He comes back 3 days later and he goes, so I talked to the head of BD at insert top 5 social platform. He's like, they lost their shit, they think that this is the next generation of ad units, like they want to talk. And I'm like, okay. And that's kind of how it's been ever since. It's been like difficult to keep up. But
Because
yeah,
it usage on the platform and increases session time, which are like
yeah.
your two main.
Well,
Oh,
more
wow.
so for advertisers that it increases ad buys. If you can increase value for advertisers, then you increase the dollars that are spent on advertising.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. That's okay. That's awesome. For those of you who do not know what a 0-day growth exploit is, it is a marketing tactic that very, very nerdy marketing people like Brian and I look for on platforms. And then once we start using it with a company, we'll get suddenly like 1,000x growth overnight. And people are like, what are you doing? And it's like, I can't tell you, because if I do, the platform will probably shut it down. I used to do a lot of them on Instagram, and that's why I have like 5 locked Instagram accounts, because every
Yep.
time they catch the 0-day growth exploit, they lock the account.
I'm gonna say something that I don't think I've said to you before, and then because of Google's video recording, I'm gonna shut up so that it switches over to your reaction to what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Um, did you know that you could, for example, take the advertising policies that are published by each individual platform or the terms of service, throw it to ChatGPT, and then ask it questions about how to work around those rules?
No. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. That is
So,
amazing. So you have ChatGPT coming up with the new 0-day growth exploits for you now.
so
Oh
the
my
so the
god.
the
Oh my
core
god.
the
I
core
love it.
premise of this is very simple, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. It's Finite and Infinite Games by James Carse. And the
Wait, hold
title
on.
of
I
the
have to write
book
this down right now. Okay.
the
Finite
title
and
of the book
infinite.
is there are two different types of games. There are finite games, which are played for the purpose of winning, and there are infinite games, which are played for the purpose of continuing play.
Yes.
And finite games is very much rule based. And so the thing about finite games is that when you create a rule, inherently you need to make exceptions to the rule.
Yep.
Because as soon as you make a rule, then people can find a way around that rule, and then inherently you have to make more rules. And government is a finite game, financial systems are finite games, advertising policies are finite games. So if you look at the legal documentation that is provided by any platform as the rules of their finite game, and you inherently start asking questions of what rules don't exist yet, they're your 0-day exploits.
And that's why now what, 3 different legal policies have been made about you specifically at 2 of the largest social media platforms on the planet.
Yeah, the one that I really like is the Facebook one, because not only was there a bullet point made because of me on Facebook, but they lied about creating it. They lied about knowing that I was doing what I was doing.
Okay.
They lied about fixing it. They lied about how many people were still using it, and then they lied about fixing it again. Someone actually wrote an article. I'll have to go dig it up, but they wrote an article about this, and it basically showed this pattern of behavior the course of 6 years, where Facebook had been lying about people exploiting this loophole. And
Yeah.
it was just, it was interesting. But yeah, I mean, like, it's difficult to fix some of these things, and inherently, until enough people are using them in a loud enough way, or in a way that undermines those platforms' revenues in a substantial enough way, why free up the engineering resources?
No, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, okay, because there were 8 different platforms, 8 different social media platforms where I was invited in as a user at an early stage, and I knew that it was bots engaging with my accounts. And I was fine with that because it made my social media look like so much more important, because it would get like 20,000 likes, and it was all bots liking the accounts, but it was the platform's bots
Yeah.
liking that. So then I would post there more often, and then people would say, oh, where are you posting? I'm like, I'm only posting to this channel. So then people would flood into that channel. So yeah, it makes sense. I'm sorry if you're not in the marketing nerd world, we just really deep dive. Um, it makes sense why they don't patch certain 0-day growth exploits.
Yeah, I mean, companies are people too. Like, at the end of the day, if you're working with a small startup, if you are a small startup and you're working with like a multi-billion dollar or larger company, at the end of the day, they have, the bigger you get, the more it's kind of designed by committee and like teams and yada yada. And there are some things that they move fast on, but inherently it's difficult to move fast on certain things, especially from an engineering capacity. And yeah, I've seen some large platforms try and take down software companies that are publishing tools that enable 0-day exploits. And more often than not, they take them down from a legal perspective,
Yeah,
not from a technical perspective.
yeah, yeah. I've seen that. Um, okay, so how long did it take to grow this current business into what it is today with this whole programmatically optimized ads?
I don't even know how to answer that question. So, legal formation was about 2 years ago. Gnome came on. Gnome knows everybody in the business, so Gnome made some calls. His we've been struggling to scale. We were like, all right, cool. Let's get 100 users. That'll be like 500K ARR. We'll do a pre-seed. We'll get 100 users, 500K ARR. Then we'll do our seed, and then we'll go from there.
Mhm.
Very quickly, because of the people that Gnome we're talking to, they were like, hey, like we have 2,000 customers that have like a billion visitors per month collectively, and like we want to deploy this in this additional surface area. We basically realized very quickly that we needed to A, raise more money, B, scale faster, and C, build a system that instead of handling 1,000 people was capable of handling 10,000, like 10,000 companies that are making AI workflows. So it's actually been challenging for a reason that I guess I'm less familiar with, which is that everything is just kind of coming to us and we can't keep up,
Yeah.
which is great and also super frustrating at the same time.
You hit product market fit. That's the thing about like growth hacking is like people are like, well, can you grow us by 10%? And it's like, here's the thing with growth hacking. It's we focus on organic marketing, which means we look for where the water is, and then the monsoon just comes. Like there's no turning it off. It's just
Yeah, I mean it's the tip of the iceberg. Like it's the like knowing where to put the X, if you're familiar with those metaphors. It's a lot of research, a lot of testing before you finally get to the thing that's obvious in hindsight.
yeah, yeah. No, I get it. I get it. With my software company, I was like, it's a marketing recommendation engine, and people's eyes would glaze over. And then I switched it. And I said, you know how junior marketers think they know it all and they're total liabilities? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Like everyone knows that. And I was like, well, imagine putting them in front of a platform where they say 6 things about the business, and then it tells them they pick the marketing goal and it tells them exactly what to do. And then it gives them the guide with the real world examples on exactly how to do it. So you have a junior marketer who knows how to do things like a middle level marketer with like 4 years of experience. And they were like, what? Oh my God. Like immediately it clicked. But when I tried the recommendation engine, it was like eyes glazed over.
Yeah, and I mean, you follow that logic down in every capacity. Like if you are able to book a sale, like we we had this trend at one point in time where we were closing sales 6 minutes into calls. It was always 6 minutes. By the end of 6 minutes, they're like, "Will you send us a contract?" Like, cool. And we would just either shoot the shit for a few minutes after because they were people that we know, or we would end the call and send them a contract. And that was really great, but then you're like, okay, well, we booked them on this, and then 3 months later, it's converting to a different price point. And they typically they wanted to convert, but they wanted to convert it to different platforms. So like we were, running a lot of paid pilots on Reddit. And we wanted to shift. Everybody wanted to shift into Facebook. They're like, if you can make this work on Facebook, like then like we have so much more budget here. And then Facebook's ad system is different, and it was less the ad system and more the API approval, and then we had to get approved on Facebook's API, which we did, et cetera, et cetera. So it's more, I don't know, relationships and business politics than it is engineering. But some businesses are like that.
Oh my gosh. The higher up you get within the business world, I think it's all relationships. Like
Yeah.
it's wild. I remember when I was young and I'd be able to just sit and do like 12 hours at the computer implementing all these different things. And now it's like, no, I have to go to these like 4 key relationship development meetings today. That's it. Like
Yep.
that's all I'm doing. Yeah.
I had a really interesting encounter. Was it past earlier this week actually? An investor friend of mine introduced me to an investor friend of his who has started and exited 2 companies. He was like an early engineer at Facebook. He's extremely well accomplished. I was very grateful to get the time with him. Basically sat down over coffee and we're just kind of shooting the shit and like talking about a few problems that we're facing and like my thinking through them and just kind of meet and greet and intention to hang out later. And as we're leaving, I hear my name called, and they call. Yeah, I'll say the name of one of these, or I'll make one of these people identifiable. But I hear my name called, and I turn and I see someone who I know, but I like it took me a minute to figure it out, just because like we were in a very different context of where I see this person. But it was the head of Porsche Ventures, and he introduced me to his buddy, who's the head of another well-known venture fund. and so I introduced the both of them to the person that I had just met and was hanging out with, and I was like, oh, like he's exited 2 companies, staff engineer, blah blah blah. And they're nerding out, and then I look at him and I go, he's the head of Porsche Ventures, he's the head of this, and he goes, oh, I drive a Porsche. And like they like just hardcore nerded out about Porsches for a hot minute, and
Yeah.
and I'm like, cool, and then like walk away, and I'm like, what, I like do not feel like I should be standing in this group of people. And I could see the person that I just met like reacting to like these people came over to him to talk to him.
Yeah.
um and it's just it's funny because it's just relationship building. I mean, I'm in a private members car club with the head of Porsche Ventures. I've been in that car club for like 3 years. It's like where I go to work when I'm out of the house. There are people who I like go on motorcycle rides with. Like it's like a chill group of people who all have the common passion of cars. I show up on a motorcycle, other people show up in $250,000 cars.
Yeah.
And despite that, it's a relatively chill group. Yeah, it was funny because I was walking away because we had initially at one point pitched Porsche Ventures and we don't fit their thesis, but in the meeting with them, in the meeting with him, we went out to lunch. And Noam, and I hadn't prepped him. I hadn't thought to prep him for this, but Noam kept talking. He's like, oh, like, and da da da, Porsche Ventures. And every time he would say that, I would immediately follow with Porsche Ventures. And I couldn't get him to stop saying Porsche because it's Porsche. And I'm like,
Oh,
I was like, they're never going to invest if you keep saying Porsche. It's Porsche. But it was just kind of like, stuff that you laugh at later, and it's relationship building. It's like if people are wanting to hang out with you, they'll make a call for you. And a lot of the relationships that I built them 6-7 years ago, thinking, maybe one day I'll call you and ask you for a favor. But I kind of was building the relationship, and then come, 6-8 years later, I'm like, hey, can I ask you a favor? And they're like, absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, like you called me the other day and you were like, oh, I've done this thing with affiliate marketing. And I was like, yeah, I'll hook you up with like the top tier affiliate account we have. And then other people are like begging for that. I'm like, who are you?
Yep. Yeah, I always laugh when people ask me for introductions on LinkedIn because it's just like, hi, nice to talk to you. Like I haven't talked to you in 5 years, and you want me to introduce you to, one of the more prominent investors in my book. Like, does that work for you?
No, I have, so how my family, we've been investing in real estate for like 5 generations. And we have some people that are new to the US or new to the real estate market. And they're like, oh, I want to invest with you. And I'm like, I have known you 5 minutes. I will have to know you anywhere from 1 to 3 years before I will let you like anywhere near anything I'm touching. Just because, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, investments are relationships, and like whether
Yeah.
you're taking money from venture capitalists or you're co-investing in something else, like you are communicating with these people on a constant basis. Like, especially if you have, if it's an LLC, it's partnership, and like that's a whole different ball of wax from a relational perspective. But even if it's a C corp and like people are coming in and they don't, if it's a safe note, and they don't have actual shares and voting shares in the company, like it's still a relationship. And they still have the ability to either give or withhold support. They have the ability to make your life easier or a pain in the ass. And if you take $10,000 from a bunch of people who that's a lot of money to them, you're going to get a lot of phone calls, and that's a lot of distraction. It's a lot to manage. You have to explain things, and it's not don't do that. It's just I'm big on like understanding the relationships that you're buying into, whether they be with clients, investors, or otherwise.
That is one thing that I think is a little bit easier in the commercial real estate space versus the startup space. Is in the startup space, the ticket size that you take for early investments is smaller, and you have the high maintenance investors. Where in the commercial real estate space, we can say the minimum buy-in is either 100,000 or $250,000. But even then, like you'll get some people that are just, they come in with this idea that they're going to own you, or that they're going to have the ability to cut people out of the table. And I showed the deck to one person. He's like, I want to get rid of half the people on the team. And I was like, well, who's going to do their jobs? And he was like, you are. And I was like, I don't know how to do their job. That's why they're on the team. So no, I'm not getting rid of people that we need. Like, I don't have all of these accreditations. I'm not a finance person. But yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. So what is, for people who are thinking about working with you at the most basic level for non-marketers, what is your company doing for them?
We're giving people a new surface area to engage. A lot of advertising is starting to fail. I mean, there's data on this, but um, and you'll see that, like, advertising is more expensive and less effective. And we're creating a system that interfaces with the existing system. And so that means that you don't have to, we're not creating a new social platform that's going to have better ads. We're not directing people away to a better landing page that, you still have to get a click to. Like, the whole goal was that we wanted to interface with what currently worked. And so, if you create an ad campaign, you give us the URLs for those ads, so we can deploy your AI agents into the comments of those ads. One of the fun things, and I'll say this just because it's salacious, is that if you bid CPC, and you bid CPC on any campaign, every social platform that allows you to put a clickable link into the comments of those campaigns, which is for everything except for TikTok and Instagram at the current moment. If someone goes into the comments and clicks on one of those links, like on YouTube, Reddit, Facebook, etc., that's not your ad unit. It's not a click. You don't get billed.
Oh my God. And that's one of the loopholes that you found through ChatGPT.
That was one of the loopholes I found, and I would share that loophole selectively. At first, I was a little protective of it, but I'm like, no, because, like, in order to that one I didn't find through ChatGPT. That one I actually found through promoting my dating profile on Reddit ads. Like, when I was trying to understand
Funniest story.
like, how did I get 10-cent CPC? Like, people that I knew who ran, like, the agency internally at Reddit were like, wait, what? Like, they were surprised. And I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, and I to date, that has been the lowest CPC I've ever gotten. I almost got back to that with a campaign that we're running right now with our AI. And we got down to 24-cent CPC, which again is stupidly low on Reddit. And the reason for it is that there's high engagement. The more comments we got on the post, the cheaper our CPC got and the higher our CTR got. So basically, the better our, translation, the more comments and the more engagement, the better ROAS. And so,
You guys, sorry, CTR means click-through rate. So somebody saw the ad, they clicked through to the landing page. CPC is the cost per click. So that is the amount of money you're paying per click for the ads. And ROAS is the return on ad spend. So or also known as the ROI in CEO speak. So the return on your investment into your ad spend. Okay.
Yeah. So more efficient, more effective, more engagement, more efficiency, more effectiveness. And we expect that that's going to change at some point in time. But the question becomes how. How
Well,
if you're
here's the thing. It always changes. But
yeah
you're one of those people that, like, literally every time something changes, you find the next loophole. Like, that's what a growth hacker is. And I think that's what a lot of people don't get. Like, growth hacking isn't using these different tactics to get these results. It's being obsessive about looking for the next loophole, and it's the infinite game. Like, our brains are built with this addiction to playing infinite games. And so everyone can't just, like, follow our playbooks and call themselves a growth hacker. They have to start to think like one, where they want to play the infinite game. So even if your company, if people were to invest in it today and there were to be some change to the Reddit algorithm tomorrow, it's not like your company would cease to exist, because you're one of those people who has spent decades literally always finding the next loophole and using it, leveraging it for your clients.
Yeah. And the way that I've always described it's a way of thinking. And, I think over the years it's become easier for me. And I think there's a lot of, like, cognitive practices that I would associate to that. I think I have certain feelings around people calling me smart. And it's funny because, like, I actually genuinely don't know what my IQ is. But my wife, it was funny. She was, like, starting to process. She's like, maybe I'm on the spectrum. And I'm like, sweetie, you've been a member of Mensa since you were 10. I was like, this should be obvious. But I have, like, a lot of investors who are constantly like, you need to make it simpler. And, like, that has
Yeah.
been commercially effective in a lot of ways. And they're right. But the way of thinking is, like, what do I have that other people don't have? Like, what are other people not seeing? How can I, look for high growth and attach myself to it? It's very much looking for those 10x opportunities while also running campaigns that, are, growing consistently over time. And it's just kind of like understanding the market and understanding how you can play into growth and stay away from loss. So yeah, I mean, I definitely have like played with a lot of ideas over time. I have a lot of things that don't make the cutting room floor. I have a giant wall of stickies behind me that is a lot of those things, and I keep them
And
up there
you
just for
should just pan for a second because I know what
yeah.
it looks like. I know what you're referring to, but the audience does not. So yeah, this is his brain, his external brain, and he had to repaint the wall so that it would work in this new house.
Yeah, my the other place. This is probably I think it's like a third the size of the old wall, but the old wall had something like it was like 2,000 stickies when we moved, and I've slowly been kind of reorienting.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, all of these are ordered based on like, okay, how much of this is a revenue opportunity? How much of this is like, is it difficult? Cool, let's do it later. Like, and rice scoring is something I use a lot, which is you measure everything based on reach, impact, confidence, and effort. And so it's a really easy way to just kind of like assess like, okay, like reach massive, like influence massive, confidence massive, effort also massive. And it's like, okay, let's do this when we have the time. Or if
yeah,
it's, a good bump but small effort, do it now. So it's a lot of just ideation, evaluation, like the ability to look at something critically, even when you're personally vested in it. Of like, I think this would be really fucking cool, but like, we shouldn't do this right now. And it's thought process. I think the more at bats you get, the better you get at it. I don't think there's any kind of like natural growth hacker, because a lot of the people that I see that are really solid thinkers and kind of like very more on the hacky side of growth hacking, they don't understand business dynamics, they don't understand team structure, and
yeah.
so a lot of times they won't understand how to pitch, or they'll do something in a way that creates legal repercussions, or they'll do
We all
something
did
that
when we were
is.
younger. We all did it early in our growth hacking career.
I actually only have one cease and desist, and it was I saw an opportunity. Someone pissed me off because they refused to pay commission that they said that they're going to pay, and I basically implied something that resulted in a cease and desist because I wanted the cease and desist, and then I framed it. But that is actually the only legal action I've ever had taken out
No,
against me.
you had Facebook and another organization that we will not name
Oh,
change
you
their
can't. Reddit, no,
legal.
Reddit made rules because of me too. No, but
Yes.
but I didn't break any rules. I told them where rules
Oh, you
should
you
exist.
stated the need for the rules. Okay.
Right. You can't be, you can't get legal recourse for breaking something that didn't exist. Like, if I did it after that, they could ban my account. Well, reasonably speaking, they just disapprove my ads.
Yeah.
But that's you just retry, you just reformat, retry.
Yeah. So, how many customers do you currently have? You said somewhere around 2,000 or something?
No, we've only been doing paid pilots. We are in the process of building our team, and rebuilding our system so that we can handle more than what our current paid pilot system is capable of doing. We have a lot of people at the gates that are just kind of like pounding our door down to scale, and that's what we're trying to meet.
Okay. Okay. So, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to become a client or they want to become an investor? And are you accepting more investors?
Yes, and yes. To all three of those questions. So consulting, growth hacking, Brian at brian.bot, Brian at
Ooh, we don't want to put your
Brian.
email out.
Huh?
We don't want to put your email out to 36 platforms. You will get so many trolls.
It, Brian at Brian.bot. That implies that there's an AI that's managing my emails. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Okay.
That was the whole premise. I mean, like why should human me answer the same question all the time? Um, my wife has been reacting. She's at the end of her entertainment capacity because I may or may not have enabled ChatGPT to manage my iMessage account. That's a different story. No, but yeah, no. Hold on just a sec.
I
Just
gave five
my
assistants
headphones.
access.
There we go.
I gave
And
five
then
assistants access to my iMessage, and so many friends got so upset because they thought they were talking to me and they were talking to an employee. And I did the same with what I did this. So I did all my social media, all my messaging. No, a lot of people were upset. So
I mean, that's the thing. I
get
think people are more upset when they realize, like, I've been more often than not, when I respond to an email, people are like, oh, that's the bot talking. And I'm like, no, the prior email that you thought was the human was the bot. But I use a lot of linguistic tools to be more efficient when I am communicating. So like I'll making space is one that I use a lot. Like, oh, let's make space to sync up. It's deliberately very vague. And it's deliberately vague because I'm just choosing a really safe path and language of like, I don't want you to feel like there's urgency. I don't want you to think that there's like an assumption of what we will do when we do this. I don't want you to think that I have an agenda. It's very much just like hey, like when you're ready to make space for this thing, like let me know.
Yeah.
And so those linguistic tools I think are really effective for me, but in comparison to an AI agent that can take its time to, convey with a great degree of nuance, like that it understands and hears what you were communicating, like stuff that I just, if I'm skipping through my day and responding to 20 text messages in a batch, then, I'm going to be fast and efficient. If AI is doing it, it'll take its sweet time with every single one.
How did you get ChatGPT set up to, what just happened? You
My chair
scared?
just broke back. I ADD me is difficult at staying in the same spot all the time. So I have like different sitting apparatuses that like move me around a lot. I like sit on a ball half the day. But answer to your question is Apple shortcuts.
Oh my God, of course you would do it that way. I feel like if you just went through I think my computer's like all of my shortcuts are like really technologically advanced compared to like some of my peers who are like not in the tech world at all. But I feel like if you were to have my computer for like 10 minutes, it would just like warp into, I don't know, the 31st century with all of the little shortcuts and tricks and
I'll
automations you do.
I'll tell you some other ones after this. But yeah, I mean the Apple shortcuts, I do things growth hacky, and then like the same modality of thinking like does not go away when I step away from work. Like we have a home kit throughout the house. And so I set up a thing where you could tell, I won't say her name, but the Apple robot, like, tell the house that like we need to, call the cleaner, or tell the house that we need this. And it'll redirect. So it'll process it to redirect it. If like our housekeeper, like when we moved in, the landlords were like, oh, like, the person next door does all the housekeeping, and if you want her, and I was like, great. So she's been great. But she only speaks Spanish, and my Spanish is not great. So like I have a system of like, if you tell HomeKit, then it relays to my assistant. My assistant will like use a translation layer and then like text back, but there's a phone number for the house. And so like when we run events, we like run events from that phone number. And so there's that modality of thinking like just doesn't turn off. And a lot of times I'll do stuff that's non-professional just for funsies, because like it's good cognitive practice.
Yeah.
But the thing that collided more recently is that I was using Apple shortcuts to automate responses to just my personal text messages. And then the idea came up of like, okay, after this last election, there's a lot of very divided opinions. There's a lot of very difficult conversations probably about to be had at Thanksgiving tables. How can we support that? And so the challenge with Apple shortcuts and ChatGPT is that you can't pass a large amount of context. And what our system is really good at is managing a large amount of context. So we probably by the end of the day, we'll have an API that we're going to deploy through Apple shortcuts, which will enable me to, for example, if I receive a text message from someone that I believe is in, let's say, a cult, and I want to use, let's say, a giant bucket of clinically validated case studies in cult deprogramming as training context, to create a response to an individual text message from this person. Basically, what the API will do is when the text comes in, it'll run the shortcut, ping the API, draft a response, and throw it into a draft in my messages and be like, do you want to send this? So, it was something that I was just, messing around with. And then I realized, oh, wait, like, here's ChatGPT, but our system's better with context. And I want to respond to these individuals with like books of context. So what if I just passed it over?
Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. All right. So the best way for people to get in touch with you is via the AI email.
Yep.
All right.
Brian.bot's the website, just my contact info, and Brian@brian.bot's the email associated.
And then What is the minimum investment size? Minimum
Uh,
ticket
we're
size.
open. We're open to most right now. It just more so depends on our lead. We've been looking for a lead, and we haven't found anyone that we're really happy jumping on yet.
Oh, for your lead investor, yeah, because that's the person you're married to.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, it's
and
more so too that, and it's very common where we have a lot of like follow-on commitments, where people will be like, okay, like I'm totally in a follow-on. I want to be less money. And so you essentially follow from the back. So like we essentially have our entire round filled from the back, but all of those are contingent on like a strong, notable lead.
yeah, ay, ay, ay. It,
Yeah.
in commercial real estate, you'll over you'll
Mhm.
oversell the
Yep.
round. So like you'll do it by like 200% because half the people are going to be like slow, and then if they're
Yeah.
slow, you're like, oh, sorry, close. Next time, be faster.
Yeah, we've done that, and honestly, like it was the election kind of just messed things up for us. We didn't really foresee how much the market was going to just be in this kind of like, let's wait and see.
My God.
And everybody just wanted to see like, well, simplistically, I don't know what rules I'm going to be playing by for the next 4 years. And so we had a lot of like, kind of pushback of people wanting to talk to us after the election. The election has happened. And so the investment markets are definitely, starting to unlock, but we're, telling our story in this new economy.
No, we had the same thing. A lot of people were like, I want to wait until the election happens to see
Hmm.
before I'm going to cut a check. And then as soon as we got the results, people were messaging like, hey, okay, send this over,
Yep.
send this over, let me see this.
Yep.
Like, but they want to know what they're going to be playing with, and they like to assess risk and prepare themselves for it and think of the best way. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why they are investors, is because they know the best way to grow their money based on whatever the external factors are.
Yeah. Everybody has their own thesis.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
Thank
Daddy.
you
Thanks for
everyone for.
having me.
Oh, are you kidding? Of course. Oh my God, I feel like this was fun. This was-
Yeah, I tried to keep. I have the right next to your face. I have the questions. I tried to keep in context and not purposefully distracting you, which I was doing right
Oh my
before.
gosh, no, okay. Yes, you guys didn't get to see it that much, but literally, Brian does this thing where it's the infinite games. We play infinite games, and so we could jump onto a call where we have like one goal, but both of us love playing the infinite games so much that we literally just keep pulling each other further and further down a rabbit hole of random like side conversations for no reason, just because it's an infinite game.
It's how our brain works.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And you want to, yeah.
my wife does this thing that I've been using a lot, which is we call it a non-consensual non sequitur, um, where she where she just will change the conversation quite radically without like being like, hey, so like, can I change the topic?
Okay.
And it's like, and my ADD is our ADD functions differently, and it's comical, but it's like I have a really fun time connecting with people in business and outside of business who are somewhere on a spectrum and just like very authentically like, this is me, this is my brain, this is how it works. And even when it's someone who has a brain that works in a similar way but a different dimension, like you learn so much, you get to connect so much, and you do so much. I think that we like work with a lot of large companies, and it's like very much just the person isn't there, the bureaucracy is.
Oh,
And you kind of have to empathize more with the person and understand like how they feel about their own bureaucracy. And then I always try and like give people like points of human connection to like make their day a little bit less bland.
yeah,
But yeah, everybody's on their journey.
yeah, yeah. That's to say the least.
Yeah.
But,
Thank you so much again. I look forward to next time.
yeah, me too. Take care, everyone. Bye. Oh yeah, you're gonna do the thing. I'll wait for that before I stop recording.
Confetti.